Blackberries have a very peculiar way of propagating themselves. They propagate themselves through what is called a tip layering method. Now what a blackberry shrub does is it sends out these long canes, and these long canes, they bury themselves in the soil, or you can bury them in pots such as these, and after some time the tips of these canes, they start sprouting roots, and you can come in and sever its ties with the parent plant, and you get an independent blackberry plant. We prefer to bury the tips of the blackberry canes in these pots because then it becomes very simple for us, very easy for us to take these new blackberry canes into whatever terraces that we want to transplant them in. But you can also encourage the blackberry canes to bury themselves in the ground and you get an independent plant. But we prefer the pots because it becomes easy for us to take them out and take care of these plants, because after you snap its ties with the mother plant, you need to take them indoors, preferably keep them indoors, keep them in the shade for about 10 days or so before you start transplanting them. So we start the tip layering of these canes, these blackberry canes, in the month of August or September, and over the months, it's almost been about 7 to 8 months. These tips have started sprouting roots, and not just that, but the cane itself has started sprouting leaves, and all that we now do is come in and snap its ties with the parent plant so that this becomes an independent plant, and it has become an independent plant because the tips of this plant has now got its own root, got its own crown, and it wants to be planted out and become independent. So all that we do is we take it out about 1 feet or so from the tip, and we have independent blackberry plants. This one over here again 1 feet or so from the tip, and this is an independent blackberry plant. This one over here again 1 feet from the tip, and we have these 3 or 4 independent blackberry plants from this particular blackberry. So how do you know this tip has sprouted roots? How do you know that this has become independent and you can snap its ties with the parent plant? It's very simple. You do a tug test. You simply tug at the cane. If it's very difficult for the cane to come out, if it does not come out easily, it means that the roots have sprouted, and that's why it's become difficult for you to tug out the cane easily. Second is that you look at the leaves. Now when the leaves are turned upwards and not downward towards the tip, that's when you know that the tip has sprouted its own roots, and you need to sever its ties so that it can be transplanted out as an independent blackberry shrub. So same over here with this particular cane, it's very difficult for me to pull it out. The roots have sprouted, and these leaves, as you can see, they are pointing upwards and not downwards. So I take it out and separate it, sever its ties, and this will become independent as well. Same over here with this one. Leaves are turning upwards. Now if you look at these leaves over here, they are turning upwards and not downwards. Here on a farm, we bury these canes in these pots in the month of August, which is almost immediately after the harvest of blackberries, because we finish the harvest of blackberries over here towards the end of August, and then we come in and we bury the canes in these pots. And now it's the month of April, almost 8 months down. These canes, they remain in the pots throughout the winter, throughout autumn, throughout winter, throughout the spring, and now we come in and sever its ties with the mother plant. Now the canes which are buried in August are the primo canes. Primo canes are 1-year-old canes. These 1-year-old canes are the canes that you need to bury. You cannot bury the 2-year-old canes, because like the raspberries, the 2-year-old canes of the blackberries, they need to be removed at the ground completely, because they will not produce any leaves, they will not reproduce, they will not produce any berries, so they are useless. So this is very important. Only the 1-year-old cane or the primo cane is the one that is going to be effective in the tip layering of blackberries. So over here I have got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, almost 6 different canes which are buried in 6 different pots. I just have to come in and snap it from about 1 feet from the tip, and we have these new canes now ready to be transplanted out in the field. So 3 over here, then we have 2 over here, and then we have couple over there. And all of these, they look very healthy. They are ready to be transplanted out, but I'm going to keep them in the shade for a couple of days before they can sort of mature themselves, before they can become ready, because they are very suddenly being separated from the mother plant. So they are going to have some kind of a transplant shock, perhaps a separation anxiety, if you will, and they're going to be taken care of a little bit indoors before we transplant them out in our field. Now look at the size of these canes. The blackberry has really very long canes. They're almost about 8 to 9 to sometimes even 10 to 12 feet long, and these canes, they go all over the place. This particular cane has gone, it has started from here, from the crown, and it has looped itself over here, and we buried the tip in this pot, and now we are going to separate the tip from this cane. And this cane as well, a very long cane, again is going to be separated, so that we have these canes which are separated. They are going to be new blackberries. Some of the blackberries, as you can see, have started bearing flowers. I got a little late this year, I think, in taking out these blackberries. I should have ideally come a little earlier, say in the first week of April. This is almost the end of April, so once I sever its ties, I'm going to make sure that I don't have any flowering buds on these separated canes, because the flowers are going to suck out all the energy and it's not going to allow the roots of the blackberry to develop. My priority right now is that this plant should be healthy. The root development should happen. What is important with the blackberries and the raspberries is that their crown is perennial. That is important to remember. The crown should be healthy, because the crown is what sends out new canes year after year. So any flower that I see over here, any flowering bud like over here, I remove, so that there is no energy which goes into the flowers, and all the energy goes into the strengthening of the roots. Here there are some misses because the cane somehow it came out, and there's nothing in this pot, but this pot has a very healthy looking blackberry in it, and it also has some flowering buds which I am going to remove, so that all the energy is diverted towards strengthening the root system. Now over here also you can see how these leaves are turning upwards rather than downwards. Turning upwards means that the root system is strong, it is already formed, and this particular tip wants to become independent. Now here's an example of how if you bury the floricane or the 2-year-old cane, there will be no results. The cane will dry out and nothing will happen. The entire cane is dried. This was a 2-year-old cane which was buried. So obviously there was no propagation at all. This, as you can see, is completely dried out. What you need is a primo cane or the 1-year-old cane. This particular cane came out from the pot, and over here I can illustrate how the tip bears all the roots which forms the crown. Now then becomes a new blackberry plant. This was the tip, and it was buried in a pot like this, and these are the new roots, and this is the new crown, and this is going to establish this cane into a new blackberry plant. So I'm going to bury it again into this pot which it came out from, so that the roots can establish themselves once again. So there you are. This is a new blackberry. So what I'm doing over here now with these potted blackberries is that I'm going to take out all these flowers, and I'm doing this because I want the blackberries to first push all the energy to the roots. I want the plant's roots to develop before I can harvest the blackberries. So all these flowers are going to be taken out. They're going to be taken out in order for the roots to develop, in order for the plant to be healthy. So finally, all these blackberries are now ready to be transplanted out from these pots that they were growing in, and they're going to be put in this terrace that we have allocated for the blackberries, and this is where they're going to flourish. This is hopefully where they're going to produce more canes and then finally blackberries. So I'm going to make a pit for it over here, right in the center of the terrace. Now the pit is going to be slightly deep because I want to bury the blackberry along with the soil that it came with. So I turn it upside down, give it a little pat, it comes out with the soil, and I simply bury it in the terrace like so. I do not disturb the soil of the pot. I do not want the blackberry to experience any kind of transplant shock. So here you are, the blackberry goes into the ground, and this is the way we are going to go along this terrace planting our blackberries.